Hello, everybody. Welcome to Go Big with Micha. I am Micha Goldberg, and today I am super excited in this confidence series to talk to the fabulous coach Nancy Linneroth about EFT and tapping for confidence. I hear an echo. Do you hear an echo? I do not have LinkedIn open. Do you have LinkedIn open?
I don't. It's interesting. It's like there's you're in a big space is what it sounds like.
Yeah,
but I
it
don't have anything
sounds
open.
a little weird, but I hope people, when you see that, maybe drop in the chat if the sound is okay for you. That would be. I think it's getting better now. Okay. All right. Never mind. We're just getting started. I'll tell you a little bit about Nancy, and then we dive right in. So Nancy Linneroth helps women entrepreneurs get over their BS so that they can go out and make 6 and 7 figures. Yay. Change lives and develop truly profitable, impactful businesses. Yes, and she's really good at it. Drawing on 9 years as a Harvard-trained attorney and 17 as a therapist. I mean, you would think Nancy must be a lot older than she looks with this resume. Nancy uses straight talk, humor, and EFT tapping to release subconscious blocks so clients can finally create their dream lives. Nancy is the creator of the MVP Activator program to release common blocks that hold women entrepreneurs and other leaders back. She's also featured in the best-selling The Science of Getting Rich for Women. I have a copy. You want to check out this book. Okay, does everybody, can you see it? Yes. I'll hold it up a little later again. Welcome, Nancy. It is
thank
so
you,
great
Micha.
to have you. And I just wanted to tell everybody who's watching this, if you're live, we totally welcome you to throw questions or comments in the chat. We love to hear from you. And if you watch the replay, please always feel free to reach out to Nancy, of course, or to me. If you have any questions, comments, sometimes when you do these things, it feels like shouting into the void. And we are always excited. I mean, when we get feedback, so let us know. Okay, that said, Nancy, let's start by, this is a confidence series, and we're talking about tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. I don't. That's an interesting name that I'm familiar with, but I never asked where it comes from.
Well, I didn't make
Maybe
it
we'll
up.
start there.
Okay, I didn't make it up. The emotional freedom technique is what Gary Craig called this. He took something that had been created by Dr. Roger Callahan, who took it from acupressure, which came from the field of acupuncture. I mean, it goes way back 4,000 years. Mm-hmm. But emotional freedom techniques is a way of using these acupressure points where you tap on them, and you do the same pattern over and over again while thinking about certain things, and it releases connections in the brain. It's fascinating. But Gary Craig decided emotional freedom techniques, and it was plural. Everyone always misses that, but because he expected it to be used in all sorts of different ways, which is how it's used now.
Yeah, and so tapping is just the more casual term for this method. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're talking about this technique under the umbrella of confidence. And before we dive really in, maybe you can share with me and our audience what your take on confidence is, and why tapping can play such an important role here.
Yeah. Well, for me, there's a couple layers of confidence. I mean, there's the sort of surface layer where I can be confident in an area. I'm fairly confident with what I do with tapping, so I'm always confident with that. But there's a deeper level of confidence where if I'm really tuned into it, I can go into any situation with anybody and feel confident, even if I don't know much about. I'm talking to I don't know, a quantum physicist. I don't know much about that. But I can be confident because I know I have a bedrock belief that I am a decent human, worthwhile person, and it's okay that I don't know everything. It's okay for me to be in a learner position because I am confident in who I am as a human being. So I see those two layers of confidence, and I find that tapping works well on both. I had a client who was confident, was extremely good at what she did. And yet whenever she had to be talking to somebody in a position of authority, a male in position of authority, she'd get nervous and she'd get kind of shaky. And she couldn't figure it out because she had done what she had been doing for years. She was extremely good at it and respected in that. And yet that one situation just sapped her confidence completely. And when we tapped on it and we uncovered where it came from and released all of that using tapping, it was like the confidence she had and should have in her abilities it was really able to shine through. And she no longer had the shaking reaction. So
I
that's
think
the surface level.
that's super interesting for a lot of people in my audience out there, because it's a lot of women working in male-dominated industries, and this is exactly one of those examples where an old thing comes up that can go back to whatever, and you might not even know exactly that there was the situation that triggered that strong belief that it's dangerous, it's not safe. Maybe you know the situation, maybe you don't, but that is so interesting that with tapping, even if you don't know the situation,
right,
you can reach something.
Yeah, and even if we never uncover the situation, with tapping, there are ways to release that reaction. It's cool when a situation comes up. I mean, I had another client who, what had happened, she had a business, but back in her corporate days, she'd been sexually harassed. Actually, I could say this about many of my clients, because sadly, that's what happened, and probably is still happening. I hope less. But that experience of being harassed in the workplace bled over into her business area. And by going back to that situation and tapping and releasing all the fear and the pressure from it, she was able to then remember all the good things that had happened, all the positive responses she'd had from people, all the support she got. And by tapping and releasing the negative piece, it freed up all this positive stuff. So yeah, I'm sad that it happens when it happens. And when I know where it comes from, when it comes up, then we can clear it away usually faster. But sometimes you don't know where it comes from. So it's sort of like in the air. And tapping can release that too, which I find wonderful and fascinating.
That's an interesting example, because you used to be a therapist for a long time. And of course, there are certain things we get, trauma. There's a lot of trauma that coaches should stay away from, need to stay away from, that belongs into therapy. Do you feel like tapping is a bridge where you can coach someone and use this method without interfering with what's going on a potential therapy side, or is it complementing?
It can, and it's an important thing for the coach to know where that line is. Since I used to be a therapist, I know where that line is, and so I don't cross it. I will keep a focus on what the goal is, and if a trauma comes up around that goal, then I am not trying to fix PTSD or anxiety disorders of any sort or depression. That is not my goal, and I'm not focused on those symptoms. But if a traumatic experience comes up, we can use the tapping to release some of the learning, if you will, that came from it, that has them now not doing what they want to do, not acting the way they want to act. And in addition to that, trauma comes in all sorts of flavors. In the therapy world, they'll talk about big T trauma and little t trauma. Big T trauma would be the big things, war, rape, death, that sort of thing. Little T trauma, though, can be, it's 6th grade and you didn't get invited to the big party of one of your friends. That's a little T trauma, but it can actually affect you in the present as an adult, even though you think back on it and go, yeah, who cares? That wasn't that big a deal anyway. At the time, it was really important. And so by tapping, we can release that. So I'm not usually called upon in my current state as a coach to tap on those big T traumas. And if I am, I'm going to make sure my client has a therapist to go to. But all the rest of it, it's fair game. And tapping does release it and relieve it so that you can do what you want and be confident, bringing it back to confidence.
Yeah. And there's actually an example, just in case you just because Nancy and I have an example that involves me as her client. That's why I wanted to share it. If you're curious, you'll find it somewhere on Nancy's Facebook or LinkedIn page or YouTube. I always had an issue with confidently bringing together the two parts of my business, which is on the one hand a communication agency and then this coaching business. And a lot of people have for a long time known me either as the one or then as the other. It was pretty clear cut. Very few people knew both sides, and we tapped on it. And that's the video that's out there. And we brought it back actually to a conversation. I think in my sophomore year of high school or something like that, where I had to choose two majors, and I wanted to choose language. I wanted to choose language and math, and was told these two things don't go together. You cannot be good at languages and math. You cannot be good at two things at the same time that are so different. And it was so interesting and helpful. I think nowadays a lot more people know that I have a business that has two elements, and I have gotten a lot more confident in the follow-up to that session we did in talking about those two elements as kind of, it's still one thing. It's both me.
Yeah. And that is actually a recorded session. I did several recorded sessions with people who volunteered to do it. Thank you for doing that, Micha. So that people could see tapping in action. It's on my website under a tab. I think it's called Nancy in Action. And so if anyone wants to go to unblockresults.com and watch that, you can watch that and some other ones of what it's really like to tap with me, because we didn't script that. It just came up. Neither of us expected that to come up, but there it was in your subconscious all those years ago from high school, where you were forced to make this choice. And you think, well, but I'm not in high school anymore. I don't have to be forced to make the choice. But in your subconscious, there is there was that rule. I got to keep them separate. So
it's one or the other. So it's really interesting. I volunteered for that session because I always feel I have a relatively easy time talking about these things. So I want people to see that it's safe. And of course, if you contact Nancy, when you contact Nancy, it'll all not be recorded, right?
No, I don't know.
Yeah. It was really just as an example. So let's talk about again how the tapping, how you help people with confidence. How common is it that confidence is an issue in your group and one-on-one clients you might be working with?
Well, it's interesting. It's not usually the first word that my clients will say. They might say something like, I have to get this program out and I just can't make the recordings, the videos of it. And when we dig down, what's going on is there's something that in them that says, well, it's not safe to be seen. So they don't feel confident showing up on video, but they don't start it with the word confident. I've also had, it really is at the base of all of the areas that I work on with my clients. I'm usually working with women, and we're usually working on mindset, visibility, or profitability issues. So that's where the MVP activator comes from.
MVP, I just wanted to say that. Mindset, visibility, profitability.
And I can pull examples from each one of those buckets. Profitability maybe sounds like, well, why do you need to be confident for that? Well, in fact, if you have at the base, which so many women have, this feeling that they don't deserve success, or it's not, they're not allowed to have more money. There's a confidence question there. Am I good enough for this? And when with tapping, you can release that. It usually goes back to childhood, some sort of experience. And here's an interesting thing. I've realized that quite often when I find that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, in a client, that client actually is gifted. Gifted people, gifted children are expecting more of themselves. And when they don't meet what they can see in their mind, they say, "Oh, I'm not good enough." And then that goes in deep as a bedrock belief.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people who will see that, because you set such a high bar. Like, even when someone just asks you, "So what are your major accomplishments?" I don't really have accomplishments. Nothing major.
And then, of course, if you looked, there's all these wonderful things that you've accomplished. But and the gifted person and the entrepreneur we're always looking at what's next, and we forget what's behind what we've already accomplished. So anyway, so that confidence piece is in each one of those areas, and it seems to be a bigger issue for women. I mean,
that's my experience. That's why I'm so focused on this, on confidence for women in those male-dominated spaces. But so we totally agree on that one. What do you think? Where does that come from?
Well, there's a couple of big places that I see it coming from. One is in the corporate world. Well, I would wish and hope that it's not as bad as it used to be. But my guess is there's still a piece of it there. But certainly the stories I get from people who've left corporate is that while they were there, they'd get passed over for the promotion. They might say something in a meeting and it gets ignored. And then a guy next to them says the same thing in the same meeting, and he's brilliant. And yes, we're going to implement that. That's wonderful. It's like,
I think I have heard that from almost every single client I've worked with in the last couple of years.
It is outrageous. And yet, so it's still happening. So sad to say, it's still there. But it happens. You can even see it happen with somebody else, with a coworker, and you internalize it as well. As a woman, I'm not good enough. I'm not respected. I'm not what they're looking for. And that can sap your confidence right there. So that's one area I see it. But I also have seen it come from childhood. And if you think about it, again, I'm hoping this isn't happening at least as much as it used to. But there were studies done where they would find that teachers, female teachers, would skip over the raised hands of the girls to pick on the boys. The boys would be called on much more often. And, you see that happen, you experience it over and over again, and you say, "Oh, I guess I'm no good. I'm not good enough." Even though it wasn't anything to do with the child, it was the teacher who was trained up in, going
Plus,
back and back.
very often it might be the case that the girl has the excellent grade, so the teacher knows that the girl will have the right answer and is on purpose going to another person who might not be a straight A student, but which actually is something, this attitude, a lot of us were trained, and I think it's still rather common to be a good girl, to be the straight A student.
Oh yes.
And I mean, I feel, having friends from all kinds of cultures, when we get to that point of talking about being a good student and being a good girl and what that meant when we were young, it is amazingly similar across the world.
Across cultures, and I've worked with people in Europe, and it comes up. And in the interesting thing is, it can go so far as to be crippling you with perfectionism. I can't put anything out until it's perfect. But of course, nothing's ever perfect. So you don't get anything out in the world. and you're just sort of stuck. You keep yourself safe and small because that I have to have it be just right before I can get it out. And I like to have, I came across this somewhere, I like to flip that around. Instead of it has to be perfect, or I'm trying to be perfect, I'm going for perfection. Reach for excellence, because excellence is attainable. And so that can sometimes be the shift there. And sometimes I have to be tapping with somebody before they'll let that in and be able to let go of the, but it should be perfect. So
it's like, I often use that when I talk about the difference between excellence and perfection. I often talk about just from sports. I mean, even if you're at the height of your discipline, I mean, you might be the fastest runner on earth right now, not that I would know the name, or the best tennis player or whatever, the person who will beat your world records has been born already. That person is still around already. It might be pre-K, or it might be someone you actually already know by name because they are in the youth championships or whatever, or right behind you, 2 years younger. If you focused on perfection in sports, you could never achieve that level of excellence.
Right. So and it's across the board. Sports is a great example for it.
Because you always lose some. You win some, you lose some. And you win more than you lose if you're famous, if you're a famous athlete. But
and there's that famous quote, which I'm going to mess up, and I don't even remember where it comes from. It might be Wayne Gretzky. I don't know, in hockey, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. And I'll put a butchered Michael Jordan quote on top of that. I missed more shots than most people take.
Yeah.
So
and he's amazing. I don't do sports, and I actually was in Chicago and saw him play, and it was like magic. And he missed shots too. So.
Yeah. So, what would you recommend to women? I mean, that perfectionism field is such a big one. I'm very glad we talked about that. So, women who feel a little stuck, and they are starting to realize that this good girl MO doesn't serve them. But they are stuck. They are kind of stuck in that corporate world, or between maybe family, society. There are so many different directions from which that pressure can come. Where should they start? Or what is a good starting point?
Of course I'm going to say tapping, but not everyone is going to be able to find someone to tap with them or able to do it themselves. I can't tap for myself. It's impossible. Yeah. But I think another place to look is to surround yourself with women who are doing it, who are getting out there, who are imperfect and still taking that action. And that has helped me tremendously expand my view of what's possible, see myself in a different way. I used to be a therapist with a little side business, but by joining groups where these women they've built their businesses, they're going to 7 figures, they've gone past 7 figures. And I know these women.
We've met at one of those female entrepreneur groups. Yep.
Yeah. And when you're with women like that, particularly with women, it becomes possible. You start to see yourself in a different way. So that's where maybe the right place to start.
Yeah, and I agree, because it tends to feel like a safer space for a lot of women. So if you're in corporate, that might be an ERG at your company, employee resource group, or it might be an industry group, women in ... For entrepreneurs, there are many groups out there with different focus areas, and also different levels. Are you new to the business? Where do you feel safe? I mean, eventually you want to put yourself in the room where you are definitely not the most interesting person. Not that women tend to think of themselves as the most interesting person in the room, but eventually you don't want to get intimidated by people who have more of the conventional measures of success than you have, but start wherever you're comfortable first. Yes.
Yeah. But you always want to have some people a little bit ahead of you. Because otherwise it's safe and comfortable to stay right where you are. But when you can be in a room or a virtual room where there are at least some women who are a little bit up the ladder from you, that's going to pull you up more than staying completely safe.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
Yeah, totally. And so for people who have never tried tapping, should we demonstrate what it is, and then you comment about how people could get into it if they are interested?
Yeah.
Let's just try.
Let's do that.
Can we try something about around confidence and just show people
okay.
how you
start with a confidence. What would you say is the most common story that the women who come to you have about confidence? What do they say?
I think a very common thing is, I want to be seen at work, but I don't feel seen, and I don't dare going out there more.
Okay. So it's like, I want that, but I don't dare do it.
Yeah.
It's not safe to put myself out there. That sort of thing.
That's a very, very common one. Yeah.
Well, let's do a really simple round. Well, let's do a somewhat simple round. It just doesn't feel safe to get out there.
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Because we all have that in different circumstances. Well, not all of us, but many of us have one thing in particular, or many, where we don't feel safe to put ourselves out there. So let's do that.
And the people, you'll notice that we're going to start with the negative. A lot of people are like, I should never be negative. I have to stay positive. But with tapping, it's good to release the negative first before you flip it around to the positive. So, Micha, you know how to tap. For anyone trying to tap along with us, which I recommend, go ahead and tap about as hard as if you were drumming your fingertips on a tabletop. So don't whiff it, but don't leave a bruise. It's not worth it. That won't help. Okay. And most of it will be done with 2 fingers of whichever hand you feel like it, except you'll do the flat of your knuckles where a man without a tie, not his tie, and all 4 fingers under your arm and on the top of your head. But you'll just see what I'm doing. Do what I do. Okay. Are you ready? So Micha, here we go. It's just not safe to get out there. Okay. Even though it just doesn't feel safe to get out there.
Even though it doesn't feel safe to get out there.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though part of me is saying, don't do it.
Even though part of me is saying, don't do it.
Another part of me is saying, but that's the way I want to go.
Another part is saying, that's the way I want to go.
I deeply and completely accept both parts of me.
I deeply and completely accept both these parts of me.
Even though part of me says, don't get out there in a big way.
Even though part of me says, don't get out there in a big way.
Don't get noticed.
Don't get noticed.
I know that I'm meant for bigger stuff.
I know that I'm meant for bigger stuff.
I know I can do more.
I know I can do more.
And I'm willing to let myself be seen more.
And I'm willing to let myself be seen more.
No, it's just not safe to be seen.
Nope, not safe to be seen.
I shouldn't draw attention to myself.
I shouldn't draw attention to myself.
I could get in trouble.
I could get in trouble.
People might make fun of me.
People might make fun of me.
What if I say something stupid?
What if I say something stupid?
What if I don't look like leadership material?
What if I don't look like leadership material?
I've got to be perfect all the time.
I've got to be perfect all the time.
And I might make a mistake if I get out there.
I might make a mistake when I get out there.
And then there go all my hopes.
And then That's it. That was all my hope.
Yeah. No one will take me seriously.
No one will take me seriously.
No one's going to listen to me.
Nobody's going to listen to me.
They'll just criticize.
They'll just criticize me.
They'll just make fun of me.
They will just make fun of me.
Then I'll get a terrible review.
Yeah, and then I get terrible reviews.
And then they'll fire me.
Yeah, someone will fire me.
And then I'll end up living under a bridge.
I'll end up living under a bridge. The Magnolia Bridge.
Okay, so that was sort of the parade of horribles, right?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
Other people make mistakes.
Other people make mistakes.
And they just carry on.
They just carry on.
They learn and move on.
They learn and move on.
In fact, everyone has made mistakes.
In fact, everyone has made mistakes.
There's not a person on this planet who hasn't made a mistake.
Yeah, there is not a single person around who hasn't made mistakes.
My boss has made mistakes.
My boss has made mistakes.
Their boss has made mistakes.
Their boss has made mistakes.
CEOs have made mistakes.
CEOs have made mistakes.
And CFOs and all of them.
CFOs and everybody, yes.
It's just part of the process of learning and growing.
It's just part of the process of learning and growing.
And getting out there in a bigger way.
And getting out there in a bigger way
means I'll probably make a few mistakes.
Will probably involve a few mistakes, yep.
And I will do some things very right too.
And I will do some things very right too.
And I can get noticed for all my great ideas.
And I can get noticed with all my great ideas.
I can make a splash with all of my accomplishments.
I can make a splash with all of my accomplishments.
I can move up by letting people see me and what I can do.
I can move up and let people see what I can do.
I can even talk about what I do.
I can even talk about what I do.
I can share what I've accomplished.
I can share what I have accomplished.
That's not bragging.
That's not bragging.
It's just saying the truth.
It's just saying the truth.
Look, I did this thing.
Look, I did this thing.
And it's good.
And it's good. It's really good.
I can let my boss know.
I can let my boss know.
I can let their boss know.
I can let their boss know.
I can speak up.
I can speak up.
I can really say what I'm here to say.
I can really say what I'm here to say.
I can be more visible.
I can be visible.
I can really step up onto the stage at work.
I can really step out onto the stage at work.
And let people know what I'm capable of.
And let people know what I'm capable of.
And if I make a mistake, oh well.
Even if I make a mistake, oh well.
I'll just learn from it and do better next time.
I'll just learn from it and do better next time.
That's what everyone else does.
That's what everyone else does.
At least the ones who become leaders.
At least the ones who become leaders.
They don't hold themselves back that way.
They don't hold themselves back that way.
And I don't have to hold myself back.
I don't have to hold myself back.
I can do more.
I can do more.
I'm meant for more.
I'm meant for more.
So I can step out there and be seen.
I can step out there and be seen.
I can claim my spotlight here.
I can claim my spotlight here.
Because I'm really good.
Because I'm really good.
And I deserve to be seen.
And I deserve to be seen.
Okay, take a deep breath in and out again. All right, so that was pretty generic.
Yeah. But we want something where people can relate to. It would be more specific if you were working one-on-one with someone instead of demonstrating. But thank you so much for demonstrating. I'll definitely share that piece again with my audience. So how can people find you if they want to learn tapping from you?
Well, they can go to my website, unblockresults.com. So that's, I'm not going to spell it. It'll be in somewhere here, right? And there's a place where you can take a quiz on the homepage to find out whether you have blocks in the mindset bucket or the visibility bucket or the profitability bucket. It's aimed towards entrepreneurs, but anyone can take it and just make up the answers, because once you're through the quiz, you get access to 3 tap along videos, just like you and I did here, but for specific common blocks in each one of those 3 areas. So 1 in each area. And those are blocks that hold women back a whole lot more. So I think that might be a great place to start. There's a way to reach out to me from the website and set up a time to talk about what's going on and what you want to accomplish and what might be getting in the way.
Cool. Thank you so much. And again, quick reminder, Nancy is in this book, Sarah Connell, The Science of Getting Rich for Women. And it's the entire book is worth reading, but definitely read up what Nancy has to say. She's one of the experts featured in here. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, Nancy. And
thank you, Micha.
Yeah, it was great having you. And for everybody out there, next week we're talking about something that is also an issue for many women. It's turning into a shopaholic. So we're talking about overcoming excessive spending, which is not fun like the shopaholic rom-com series wants to tell us. It is a serious issue. And that's what I will discuss next week with my guest, Erin Keith. Have a great rest of your week and see you soon. Bye-bye.